Hello there, welcome to Showcase. Turkish artist Zeynep Cilek Cimen's art journey started in a very traditional way. She was producing art based on strict rules. But later, she got to add her own interpretation and ended up blending Eastern patterns with Western techniques. And her latest exhibition at Istanbul's Monarchy Gallery reflects her idea of art through spring flowers. Zeynep Cilek Cimen comes from an art-loving family. Her father was a historian and calligrapher, and her mother was an oil painter. So it's not surprising that she started making art at the early age of 15. What is surprising, however, is that she never hesitated to think outside the box, despite receiving many negative comments about her works, which blend the bold lines and shape colors of op art with the traditional 16th century art of the Ottoman era.
I used op art because it also has strict rules. No mistakes allowed, and there's a math to the job. I combined these disciplines and practices when I was a classical painter before.
For Cimen, her latest exhibition, Spring, at the Monarchy Gallery is a contribution to our aesthetic heritage. And it invites people to think about our cultural memory as it reflects traditional motifs from Anatolia.
My palette has had black tones for a long time. I rarely used green and turquoise. Of course, some of the processes we go through affect people. I named the exhibition Spring because now we need a little more color and energy. I also wanted to raise questions, such as the re-examination and interpretation of decorative arts.
In addition to many paintings of vivid flowers, the exhibition also features Cimen's photographs. She takes a photo of a flower every day until it finally wilts. Then she replaces it with another and takes notes about that one's life cycle.
In all my colors, I chose the colors of spring flowers. I'm dealing with the subject of flower and its meaning. They're all flowers that bloom in spring. I invite you to think about what is permanent and what is temporary. I'm constantly changing the motifs because life is also in constant change, and spring always represents change.
For Zeynep Cilek Cimen, being an artist is not just a profession, it's her greatest passion. And she channels all her effort to bridge the past and the future, sometimes with colors, techniques, and motifs, but this time with spring flowers. Esra Dürüst, TRT World, Istanbul. Italian director Alice Rohrwacher's new film La Chimera will compete for the top prize Palme d'Or in Cannes Film Festival 2023. Her previous film, Happy as Lazzaro, was hailed as a modern fairy tale by critics. Now, let's explore that movie and her cinematic style in more detail.
Buono.
Gli occhi azzurri.
Naivete exceeds its limits in Alicia Rohrwacher's films, whether it's in the eyes of Lazzaro, Marta's silence, or Gelsomini's altruism. Yet naivete is not a victimizing and taming trait. It's a form of primitive force that creates poetic warriors. And Rohrwacher's 2018 film, Happy as Lazzaro, is perhaps the greatest example. The film tells the story of a peasant group in a remote suburb working under a cruel marquise. Among them, Lazzaro appears as a selfless, Christ-like figure within an exploitive circle. He's teased unordered, but he seems unoffended. Despite winning the Cannes Screenwriting Award, what makes the film such a modern classic is not just the storytelling. It's rather the feeling of timelessness made possible by a visual imagination. And the director herself agrees.
I made this film exactly in order not to be able to tell it in a synopsis. It has almost become a drug of our time to have to reduce everything into a slogan or a single sentence. This is a film that has to be experienced in its visual, political, and poetic dimensions. The only way to tell what it is about is to watch the film.
Rohrwacher's first two feature films, Heavenly Body and The Wanderers, share similar themes. Within the pastoral setting of Italy, the film shows how seemingly conflicting tensions between the rural and the urban, as well as the traditional and the modern, are intertwined. And the protagonists show this ambiguity too. They're all adolescent, yet candid, and as outsiders of their society, they seem vulnerable yet firm in sticking to their authenticity. Heavenly Body's Marta is much more sincere in her quest for God than Father Don Mario. Gelmino is more true to nature than Wolfgang's hippie idealism. In a few days, Rohrwacher's latest film, La Chimera, will compete at Cannes 2023, and it will almost certainly convey her passion with entangled relations between the past and present. And according to the filmmaker, the film essentially asks one question: what should we do with the past?
History was recently made with the coronation of Britain's King Charles III. Both the media and royal scholars analyzed the members of the monarchy present at the event from every possible angle. So we thought it was high time to look at the portrayals of British royalty on screen to see what they reveal about the crown.
Good evening, ma'am. I'm sorry to disturb, but it's the Princess of Wales.
Why? What's she done now?
Diana, Princess of Wales, has died after a car crash in Paris.
Royal representation on screen often goes hand in hand with historic context.
The people's princess.
One example is Helen Mirren's The Queen.
Diana's no longer a member of the royal family.
It's set during the time of Princess Diana's death and Tony Blair's government coming into power. The movie shows not only how the royals received Blair's modernization policies, it also provides a character study of the Queen in the face of tragedy.
It's God's will. She is who she is. I think we should leave God out of it.
For he today that sheds his blood with me shall be my brother, be he ne'er so base.
Henry V finds the king on his mission to invade France in the 1400s. Among the financial backers of the movie was the British government. It was filmed during World War II, and Winston Churchill believed the motion picture would boost public morale.
Bursts upon the screen with all the vivid, sweeping impact of its greatness.
The Technicolor visuals and the epic filmmaking style had a hand in it being hailed as a prestige production. Based on the historic play of the same name, the movie also put Shakespeare adaptations on the map.
Set free the man committed yesterday that railed against our person. We considered it was the heat of wine that set him on, and on his wiser thought we pardon him.
Dearest Queen, you are mad. Giving me a palace. It is a monstrous extravagance, Mrs. Morley. We are at war.
While Henry V championed the British royalty's ambitions, the more recent, The Favourite, put a satirical spin.
I can tell even if I can't see, and I heard the word fat, and ugly.
The film employs black comedy to depict the decadence and hypocrisy in 18th century England during Queen Anne's reign.
So beautiful. Stop it, you mock me.
Let's shoot something. It is hard to remember whether you have loaded the pellet or not.
I've been in office 62 years, making me the longest-serving monarch in history.
Victoria and Abdul finds the Queen seeking friendship outside the court.
To the royal household, you will present the Queen with a ceremonial coin.
And she finds it with a young clerk, whose job is to give Queen Victoria a precious coin for her golden jubilee.
Disagreeably attached to power.
Reviews say the portrayal of the Queen is a portrait of fading power and human connection.
Abdul has risen on his own merits. Now, he is my friend.
In light of the events of the last 12 months, perhaps I have more to reflect on than most.
The Crown adopts a long storytelling format to analyze Queen Elizabeth II's lengthy reign, while spotlighting English politics through the decades.
It's a situation that cannot help but affect the stability of the country.
Some champion it as television's best soap opera, but others find it to be anti-monarchy.
People will never understand.
Incidentally, the series runs at a time when many Britons question if the monarchy has any relevance anymore. But that discussion aside, the royal family will likely remain relevant, at least on screen for a long while yet.
And we'll be left with nothing.
How did it come to this?
Museo Picasso Malaga in Spain has joined the international commemoration of the 50th anniversary of Pablo Picasso's death. The show was a celebration of the artist's sculptures and the first in Spain of this size.
Picasso is arguably the most influential artist in the past 150 years. Over a nearly 80-year career, he made thousands of works. It's estimated that 700 of them were sculptures, but they never became as popular as his paintings.
Picasso sculptures were not that well known because difficult to not to sell but to install in a collector's private home or museum would have access more to paintings, and so sculpture was not so much collected at the time, and Picasso kept them a lot also. That's very important. So only after Second World War things start to be much more important at level of museum, especially in North America, also in Europe.
According to his grandson Bernard Ruiz Picasso, the inspiration for the works was simple: nature and everyday items.
It's a permanent play with a concept of assembling pieces together, found objects he found in the floor or in the countryside or in his studio, and then he assembled them together, and then he leaves them, and then it's a man, it's an animal, it's whatever. Or he will take a piece of metal and he will apply on it some plaster, and then it will become also an animal or a bird or something. So it's a question of adding or taking away. It's very modern.
The exhibition is titled Picasso Sculptor, Matter and Body, and it presents works spanning nearly 60 years of Picasso's career. Styles vary from cubism to abstraction and primitivism, and the materials range from wood, iron and cement to bronze and steel.
Picasso is an experimenter, a seeker, a researcher of new forms of art. And at the same time, he is an artist who claims not to represent the world, but to build his own world.
The exhibition will run until September 10 before moving on to the Guggenheim Museum in Bilbao.
Sotheby's New York is gearing up for its spring sale, and the house is estimating its sales figures to hit over $1 billion. Here's more on the collection.
Gustav Klimt's Insulin Mattersee is making its auction debut at Sotheby's New York. It's the only landscape of Austria's Atter Lake that has been in private hands. The estimate for the painting is around $45 million.
It's a true dynamic landscape that it was painted in a lake region outside of Salzburg where the artist vacationed. And it's really a moment where he paints freely, and he verges so close to abstraction around 1901, 1902 that it's incredibly innovative to see what he's doing both with perspective, color. It's almost more of a poetic depiction of water than it is a true landscape, which is what I think makes it so exciting.
Along with the Klimt, a collection of portraits of Picasso's famed muses will also go under the hammer.
What's really exciting about this group of portraits is that you can really trace his relationship with these individual women in the way that he approached painting them. You know, you have Marie-Thérèse, who is painted with soft pastel colors. It's very round and very sensual. You have someone like Dora Maar, who is an intense, person. They had a very strong relationship, and they were both artists, and they butted heads, and you can see that in the angularity and the intensity to which he painted that portrait. And then with Jacqueline, who is his final muse, his wife towards the end of his life, she is goddess-like. She is larger than life, and she really, looms over you in a way that, is almost, it's uplifting the way that he paints her.
Another exciting collection is that of the legendary music executive Mo Austin. 2 works by René Magritte are among the top lots. One of the paintings has an estimated price tag, but the house expects a surprise.
We think that this work has incredible potential beyond its estimate of 35 to 55 million. We sold another work from this series. There are 17 Empire de Lumière oils that Magritte painted. And as you may know, the world record for Magritte is another Empire, which we sold in London for over $80 million.
In recent years, art has become an asset, even in today's uncertain market. It has performed surprisingly well, as has been reflected in global art sales. What remains to be seen is whether the spring auction will reach the expected numbers by the time it ends on May 19.
Ai Weiwei's large-scale items are on display at London's Design Museum. Recent works and commissioned pieces make up the exhibition, which is the artist's biggest UK show in 8 years.
Commentary on design, exploring tension between past and present, hand and machine, precious and worthless. This is how the brochure describes Ai Weiwei's latest exhibition at London's Design Museum. A first-time viewer may come to the exhibition with expectations of complex displays, but Ai does it once again. Simple items with deep symbolism. This time, the centerpieces are made of Legos.
Recent years, I started using Lego as my main medium to carry out my message. So there are also my memories with my father. He was studied in Paris as artist in 1920s, and later I and him was exiled. There's a black door behind me. I integrated into this Monet's Water Lily. So because Monet's artist my father liked. So this is really a memory piece.
In addition to the 15-meter Monet recreation, Legos were also used to create one of the 5 expansive fields laid out on the gallery floor. The pieces were donated by people from around the world in response to Lego briefly refusing to sell their products to Ai in 2014. The museum is a perfect space to go big and present unique pieces.
Well, the works contains 42 new works never been seen in London, and many works also first time I see it in public display, because simply you can see works are quite scale in terms of numbers or quantity. So Design Museum gave me this first opportunity to show it, and it's quite for me, it's quite fresh. I don't want to show anything has been showing in UK. So
the exhibition is also a crosscut of Ai's career. An iPhone cut out from a jade hand axe from the Neolithic era, toilet paper sculptures made during the COVID-19 pandemic, and a tribute to the refugee crisis in Europe made of life vests. The collection also includes hundreds of thousands of teapot spouts from the Song dynasty and pieces of sculptures from Ai's demolished studio in Beijing. An inevitable reminder of Ai's criticism of the Chinese Communist Party.
Well, I've been pushed out from China since 1915, but I don't feel this much different because even within China, I'm a distant person, and my father's generation was exiled by Chinese government within our nation. So to live outside or inside it doesn't really affect me that much. But of course, as someone never had home and never will have home, and it's kind of genuine but a strange feeling.
Ai currently lives in Portugal and says he is excited to make the best of every new day. According to him, going back home is not an issue, but coming back out might be.
Bad moms in horror films. It's a genre that's been around for a long time, and now it's making a comeback. Both Beau is Afraid and Evil Dead Rise explore the psychological impact of having a complicated relationship with one's mother.
Beau is Afraid is a surrealist tragicomedy horror film directed by Ari Aster. It follows a good-natured but anxiety-ridden man who embarks on an epic, surreal journey to get home to attend his mother's funeral.
I'm visiting my mother tomorrow.
But along the way, he'll have to confront his darkest fears. Filmmakers have been playing with the monstrous mother's theme for a long time. A seminal example to the genre is Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho, but things have evolved since then. And according to critics, Beau is Afraid is part of that change.
It is stretching the boundaries of horror in ways that I find very ambitious and risky and ultimately rewarding. And I feel like Ari Aster has been doing this for a while now, but this is his biggest swing at the plate. And I think it's remarkable how he understands horror in a way that involves feelings like guilt, shame, humiliation, that are not often part of the horror vocabulary. You know, we think horror and we think fear and dread and haunting, but we don't necessarily think guilt, shame, humiliation.
Another such film that came out recently is Lee Cronin's Evil Dead Rise. Though it may seem as a classic monstrous mother story at first, the interaction between the two sisters sets it apart from others, as one has to tap into her protective maternal side to fight the evil.
Although this movie isn't about heavy metaphor at all, it just lent itself to this exploration of maternal fears and what it might mean if you're a mother, or what it might mean if your mother was to turn on you. And again, it just felt like a place that you could go and play and start to bring the Evil Dead lore up against it and start to bash these two things together, you know, and to actually create something that was unique.
But what makes the idea of a mother such a fertile one when it comes to exploring psychological trauma?
Well, I think horror is, at its core, a very primal genre. So it makes absolute sense that things like family, sex, death would all be things that the horror film is constantly mining, because those are primal fascinations and experiences. And within the rubric of the family, of course, the mother has a very special place, because that mother-child bond is such a essential entryway into the world for all of us.
Mom?
Mommy's with the maggots now.
And that's perhaps also the reason why it's a theme that bonds both filmmakers and viewers to the screen.
That's it for this episode of Showcase. I'm Esra Dürüst from me and the whole team here in Istanbul. Thanks for watching, and bye for now.